Happy fall, y'all. And with this time of year comes progress monitoring data. And for some of you, you might be feeling a little bit discouraged. So stick around today. We are going to talk about 4 possible red flags that you might be missing when you're looking at your progress monitoring data. My name is Emily Muccianti. I'm a reading specialist and interventionist, and I am here to help you wade through the world that is reading intervention. Don't forget to check out my reading intervention courses, one for middle school and also one for elementary school. You can go to emilymuccianti.com. Stick around to the end because I have some timely announcements and let you know what is happening in the world of intervention as far as I am concerned. Okay, so if you are like me, then your whole beginning of the year window was all about getting your assessments done, your benchmarks. This is the time of year from about August to September where we are looking at making sure that we have the right kids in intervention. But now that we are in about mid-October, we're actually starting to develop and grab some progress monitoring data so that we can see if the instruction that you are providing is actually working. And this is a really important step. So I want to talk to you about a little bit about progress monitoring in general, but also really talk about these 4 main points. The first thing I want to tell you, and this isn't one of the red flags, but these are some of the reminders. Not every student in your school needs to be progress monitored. Now, the students who are receiving additional instruction or intervention should be getting progress monitored. This is very important. And the frequency of this is important as well. Now, this means all of your students who have any IEP goals that are related to reading instruction should absolutely have a progress monitoring schedule in addition to your interventions. But if you're a classroom teacher and you've got kids that are at or above benchmark, there is no reason to take away instructional time to actually progress monitor them. If they showed at the benchmark that they were on target, then the odds are well in their favor that they are going to remain on target. Now, here's my caveat to that. If you notice or you feel like, something's going on with this kid, I'm not seeing quite the progress I want, I'm a little overly concerned, then by all means, do a progress monitoring probe on that student. But the ones that should consistently be on your schedule are the ones that are receiving additional instruction and intervention, okay? So hopefully that frees up some time. I have actually trained schools, and one of the myths that come from some of the trainings that I've done with schools is, you mean not everybody needs a progress monitoring? No, they don't. If your benchmark was showing that they are good, then you are by all means good, unless you have reason to question that. Then you do a probe. Okay, so that being said, let's talk about these 4 red flags. We're going to assume that you've collected your benchmark data. You have grouped your students by like skill deficit so that you can then match the instruction to whatever skill deficit you had. Now, the rest of this is about making sure that we are consistently progress monitoring those kids. So we're going to assume now that you are doing that. Sometimes, especially this time of year, you might be feeling like, okay, I'm about halfway through until my first semester ends, and I don't see the progress I want to see. So there are a couple things I want to remind you of first. Change takes time. Okay, so don't get discouraged with that. But there are some red flags that I think can help you kind of navigate some of this. Okay, I know that was a lot. Sorry. The first red flag that I want you to consider if your data is off is inconsistent testing schedule. Do you have an inconsistent progress monitoring schedule? Are you just grabbing it here and there, willy-nilly? You do not, sometimes you miss a window. This is really important. We have got to schedule our progress monitoring days. Now, when I ran my reading lab, we had, I had a team of 5 paras, and every para was responsible for their progress monitoring. So every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the group, what we would do is that para would be scheduled to have a progress monitoring day. So I had 5 of them, and that means that every 2 or 3 weeks, one para was doing progress monitoring. Okay. This was in our calendar. It was set on our schedule, and it helps because now I can make those instructional decisions. So the first thing is to make sure that your progress monitoring dates are in your calendar and schedule them. Now, if you, depending on the model of intervention that you have, this can be a little bit challenging. If you're doing a pullout with teachers that are, you've kind of got this inconsistent instructional time with them, that's a whole other issue, right? Consistency is crucial. But we have to have the progress monitoring dates scheduled. Okay. So put it on your calendar. Let your teachers know this is the week that we do this, and remain consistent. Super important. If you don't have the time to do this, then you are going to miss one of the most important aspects to progress monitoring, and that is making sure that you are getting timely information about your students' growth and goals. So set those dates, put it on your calendar. The reliable data needs to be there. Okay, that's your first red flag. So we're going to straighten out the consistency, get that down. The second red flag, if your progress monitoring data is off, that you want to look at is an over reliance on composite scores. Now, depending on the tool that you're using, if you're using something like Acadience and you were using the benchmarks and you are given a composite score in your benchmarks, the composite score is meant to be a broad representation of that student's skill level. Composite scores should not be used for progress monitoring. Okay. Now, so if you're only looking at your kids at your beginning of the year window and your middle of the year benchmark windows, you will have composite scores. And we don't want to use that to determine growth. The reason is, particularly with our primary students, the composite score changes because there are different skills that are being assessed. So we don't want to use composite scores in order to track progress monitoring growth. We actually want to look at the subskills. So for example, if you have a 3rd grader and you are progress monitoring that student with oral reading fluency, that is the number, the single skill assessment that you want to use, and that is the growth indicator that you are going to track. Now, I love a good oral reading fluency because not only do we get that correct words per minute, which is that measure of automaticity, and we hope that that grows, and I'll show you something in shortly about that. But the other part of that is your accuracy. Now, an accuracy score in your progress monitoring is often overlooked. If you're tracking oral reading fluency and all you're looking at is the correct words per minute, you're missing something really critical. And that is the accuracy changes in your students. Think about it this way. We know that there are 3 aspects to fluency, right? There's accuracy, there's automaticity, and there's prosody. Now, that develops in that particular order. Before a student is going to see a growth change in the oral reading fluency number, the correct words per minute, they have to be more accurate. So watch that accuracy. If those numbers are staying flat, but the accuracy is improving, keep doing what you're doing because you're getting there. You're hitting the mark. But don't use those composite scores as a measure of progress monitoring. I don't think that that's going to give you what you need. All right. Red flag number 3 to look out for. And this is if you have a student who is, when you are laying out their trajectory line and you are seeing that their data points are leveling off. So you're getting either a plateau or a ceiling or even a decline in the trajectory line, then there are some things that you want to consider. And these usually come back to instructional points. But before I get into that, let me show you what I mean. I have lots of videos, so check on the ones that are previously about trajectory lines and progress monitoring, but I do want to show you something first. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a progress monitoring packet for third grade oral reading fluency. It comes from Acadience. These are available for free at acadiancelearning.org. Your assessment, if you're using Dibbles, AimsWeb, or something else, hopefully has something similar. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this paper pencil, but if you have a data management system, then this is going to be much, much easier. But I want to manipulate and kind of navigate this. So let me just show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about trajectory lines and sloping lines and that sort of thing. So what I've done here is I have marked the trajectory line of a student in third grade at benchmark. So to be at benchmark at the beginning of the year, third grade, the student needs to have 70 correct words per minute. I then looked to see what was at the end of the year goal, which was 100. So this blue line represents the goal line, right? If we had a student who was on track, that would be the trajectory that they would hopefully follow. Now, what I've done here with this red line is given you an idea about a student who is performing below benchmark. So this student's going to be around, let's say, the 55, 57 correct words per minute, which is well below below the third grade benchmark. And I've created a different trajectory line. So this line here is going to be the line that this student should fall along as the year progresses with their progress monitoring numbers. If they fall along this trajectory line over the course of the school year, they will be at goal by the end of the year. Now, we can adjust these goals, right? Maybe this is a little too ambitious. Maybe it's not quite attainable. Honestly, I think it probably is attainable, so I'm going to leave it where it is. But just know that we are looking at what is benchmark and what our student is. So this is their goal, right? This is their trajectory line. Now, what we want to do as we are progressing throughout the year is we need to keep track of how our student is moving along their trajectory line. So down below here, I have the months. So here's September, October, November, December, and so on. And each week here is represented. So the first week through the fourth week of each of those months. Now I want you to notice here's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. We want to plot these numbers approximately where we are in the school year to see where they fall along their trajectory line. So if we're going to go back and give you a little bit of a demonstration here, let's say that we did our assessments in September, and we had our student who at the end of September, we decided to do our first benchmark, and that this student was at 60, whoops, that's a really thick line there, sorry, 60 words per minute. And let's say that they went to 62, and then they went to 60 again, and then they went to 65. And maybe they went to 68. Okay, so let's say I'm going to plot these, right? That means week 4, I am at 60, which would be right here. 62, which isn't going to be much more than that, would be right about there. 60, we're back along that line. 65, maybe I get up there. 68, maybe I get up Oops, I see I'm off because I'm not doing my numbers. Okay, so 60 should be here. Sorry, I need to skip that one. 65 might be here. 68, it would be the last one. Okay, so let's just approximate, right? So if I'm looking at and I am analyzing these data points, I want you to remember that 3 data points is what we are looking at. Now, I can see that the trend is upward, and I like that. That's pretty good. You will get some up and downness, right? Not everything is always going to trend up. That is not normal. But the point is, I can see that this student is still falling under their trajectory line, which is still very well below where they should be through that course of year. So I need to make some adjustments, right? I'm going to have to look at this. And when I look at these things, I'm looking at instructionally, what do I as the teacher need to do to accelerate growth? I'll talk about those in the moment after I stop sharing the screen. But when I do make these adjustments, let's say now I can get that student, hopefully, to start really showing some gains. And that is truly what our goal is. It's to get that student, and I don't have my glasses on, so I'm having a hard time seeing that, but it is to move them through those upwards of that goal line. We don't want to make adjustments too quickly. This is why I think that 3 data points is important. And so, which is also why we need a consistent progress monitoring schedule. So I'm going to stop sharing this, come back and kind of make my points about some instruction that we can do to accentuate or into enhance and advance this. Okay, so you have looked at the progress monitoring, you have your trajectory lines, and you can see that your student is either plateauing or maybe even declining. And the red flags that we want to consider here is that these are typically instructional aspects of what's happening. It's not the student, it's the instruction. So we want to look at our instruction. Is it possible that that intervention has reached a ceiling? Perhaps it is too easy for the student and they are ready for more. And we have to start maybe either accelerating the amount of time. We can go a little more intense. Does that mean a curriculum change? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. So you have to dig into your data to see what is actually happening there. Another thing that could be happening is that the intervention is lacking intensity because you're not seeing the student enough. These are kids that are seriously behind in most cases. You are not going to catch them up overnight. So we need to have intensive, consistent interventions with an appropriate tool. So we have to consider that. Also, something instructionally to consider. Is there a mismatch between the content and the student need? Let's say, for example, that your student is plateauing and you're like, okay, I just don't know what to do. The student still lacks maybe some accuracy. Maybe you go back in and do another phonics assessment with that student to see, did I cover the pieces that that student needed? So revisit those skills, make sure that you are aligning those to the student need. If you have to, intensify your support, add consistency, do what you need to do so that you're seeing that student more frequently. But we are going to need to make some adjustments if you notice that trend in your students. All right. And then the 4th flag that I want to talk to you about, the 4th red flag to consider if your progress monitoring is off, and that is, are you using the wrong assessment? I cannot tell you how often I have conversations with interventionists about the difference between progress monitoring and a skill mastery check. These are different assessments. They serve a different purpose. They are both important. So if you are using a tool like UFly, after so many lessons, there is going to be a skills check, right? There's like going to be a spelling component to it, a little bit of a reading component. That's important. What a mastery check does is it is checking to see if the skills that you taught were actually learned. So for example, let's say you were working with vowel digraph OA, and we need to know, does that student know that combination? Do they know how to spell it? Do they know how to read it? Very important to know that. That is not progress monitoring. Okay, it's just not. So what I want to recommend to you is that you should have something that is not curriculum dependent when we're talking about progress monitoring. We are looking at the predictive skills, the predictive indicators, these skills that are going to tell us, is the student generalizing and internalizing all of these additional things that you're teaching them. The best things to use for that are what you used in your universal screener. So if you're using a cadence, for example, you are looking at some of those skills that you were assessing for your grade level. If it was third grade, it's an oral reading fluency. It might include the maze as well. So that, an oral reading fluency probe, is going to show you, is the student taking that information from UFly or from whatever tool that or curriculum that you're using, and are they actually now applying it to text? And that is going to be, I think, your best indicator. So don't confuse a mastery check with a progress monitoring tool. Again, please don't misunderstand. A mastery check is important. We want to know, did the kid learn that particular skill? But we also have to look to see, is it being applied? So those weekly phonics checks and quizzes that are happening within your curriculum, that's not the data for this purpose that you are actually looking at. So keep that in mind. We want to, I'm looking at my notes here. Okay. We are looking at this progress monitoring to make sure the actual learning and retention of those skills is being applied. Okay. So there you have it. There were 4 red flags for you to look at if your progress monitoring data is off. Let me recap those for you. First, I have to go back. Number 1 is make sure that your testing schedule is consistent. Number 2 is don't rely on those composite scores. You want to check those sub-skill scores. Number 3 is to pay attention to those sloping or declining trajectory lines and what your adjustments you are going to make instructionally for your students. And then the 4th one is making sure that you are using the right assessment. Your assessment that you use should track small changes in growth over short periods of time. That's why a tool like a Cadence honestly is perfect for that. That is what it is meant to be. These are quick and efficient measures. This should not take you 20 minutes per kid. Keep that in mind. Okay, stick with me. I'm not done because I want to talk to you about some things that are happening that I want to make you aware of. First of all, if you are not on my email list, make sure you check the link down below. Get on my email list so that you can receive newsletters from me with live Q&As where you come in with me and other interventionists and get to know us. We pick each other's brains and talk and share and learn. If you are a new interventionist, an administrator who is looking to bring some new and a plan for intervention to your school, please consider checking out the Reading Intervention Framework, which is my K-5 MTSS course, and my Reading Reset, which is my 6th through 8th grade middle school course. Intervention looks a little bit different in those grade levels. I have courses for both of them. And if you would like to bring me to your school to talk about those, don't forget that's an option for you as well. And then one other announcement, that is in December 9th and 10th, 2025, I am partnering with the Bureau of Education and Research, BER, to bring a 2-day MTSS Intervention Institute virtually. And it is Strengthen Your MTSS Reading Intervention Framework Strategies for Tier 2 and Tier 3 Intervention. I know that's not going to, let's see if it'll hold. It doesn't want to link anyway, or it doesn't want to focus. I'm going to drop the link down below for you. Now, this is my reading intervention course that is asynchronous and available for you on my website, but I am delivering it live, and it is intended for school teams to come in. We build in time for you to talk to your teams as well and do some of that planning right there. I know it's not easy to carve out that time with your team, and so with BER's help and the content that I can bring to you, we're going to go ahead and do that. So please check that out as well. There is a registration link that I will put in the links show notes down below. All right. That is it. I hope fall is being good to you and that you are finding success. Don't forget, reach out to me anytime, readingdiva06@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for my YouTube, because this is where I show up the most. All right. Have a great day. Thank you for what you do. Bye for now.